The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello and welcome to the Future Tech Podcast, everyone. My name is Josh Thomas. I'm here with Bryan Feinberg from Etheralabs.io and Zephyr Technology Ventures. Hey, Bryan, how's it going?
What's happening?
Oh, not much. Just doing this little podcast here, and we're real excited to hear about what you're doing and what you're bringing to the space. Tell us a little bit about Etheralabs.
So Etheralabs, basically we set up as a venture accelerator looking for early stage innovation around the blockchain space and kind of taking those companies not only to market, but building an intelligence platform to drive intelligence through the institutional investment community. So we have a lot of projects under development, and we are working with a handful of extremely innovative companies across the space, tackling all sorts of issues from pharmaceutical to security and marketing automation.
Okay, and so give us a quick example. You don't have to tell us the companies that you're working with, but an application where your Etheralabs process comes into play.
Well, considering we're in blockchain speed on everything these days, where months, feel sometimes like years in terms of progress. About 4 months ago, we went into kind of a rapid stage deployment of building an open repository of intelligence to kind of help craft that narrative and deliver relevant information. We're beyond our MVP. We've built what we think is a formidable, opportunity to be able to drive intelligence and kind of separate the signal from noise that we are all faced with, across this growing landscape. So on one hand, our token strategy there all has to do with the fact that, we're creating a lot of data and a lot of data engagements. And, as a contribution, we are setting this up in kind of a foundational framework, where hopefully, our machine learning and our AI will continue to, fuel pushing this kind of information out into the marketplace. So everything is about rapid deployment. It's kind of about engagement, but, it's all about relevance and really trying to put the math and science on display, as well as, the innovators and the entrepreneurs that are, essentially creating this whole new economy around blockchain.
Okay, so help me understand then. The question was about an application, and I think that you did a good job of explaining kind of what the foundation of your software and your technology is. But where would be a situation where somebody could use this?
Well, again, from a banking perspective, this is really about the transaction at the end of the day and kind of driving that engagement and essentially creating a standardized look at the way crypto assets are not only looked at, but really the way that they're valued. And, as this industry continues to expand and consolidate, we feel that we can be a very, very fair and objective voice to the institutional community that so much wants to participate, but is still trying to figure out what a token is and how that token works. Other examples of kind of our work is to take a look at token design and start to think about, the underlying business and the underlying data activity that is driving it. So on occasions, we have helped influence, I would say, the development of tokens that are active in the marketplace right now through kind of our advisory business.
Okay, got it. And So that's definitely something that there's a learning gap, there's a knowledge gap present between those people who have an idea of the cryptocurrency space, and then those investors who would love to put their money into it if they only could figure out what the heck it was and how to actually buy a token. And there's a huge, significant gap there. And what are some of the things that your technology can do to kind of narrow and eliminate that gap?
Well, first of all, on some of the technology that we're building into an exchange level environment that we hope to have live within the next couple months is really the ECN, the connectivity of exchange-listed tokens, I would say exchange-listed deals, because again, in this environment right now, we differentiate between, the pre-sale, post-sale, pre-sale, the listing process, getting onto kind of the mainnet environment, and then, kind of being accessible through exchange-level environments. And we see that marketplace rapidly changing over the course of the next year, where peer-to-peer networks are starting to become more prevalent, and the ability to plug into liquidity pools that are spread out across the exchange-level world. And the efficiency of banking at that point really has to do with whether it's algorithmic matchmaking, or it's actually, going out and researching certain companies and being able to kind of invest in those companies right on the spot through, a single interface, transaction. So, I think that the centralized world of exchanges are necessary at this point, not only to be able to be held accountable for security, but the institutional investor right now is more looking towards packaged product and the way to be able to deploy their investment capital through, managers that will invest those across different crypto assets.
Okay. And so talk to me a little bit about the inception of this idea. How long have you been in business here, and what motivated you to build this application?
So outside of our corporate setup, which we only did 4 months ago as a company, this is really a continuation of something that I started in 2009. And coming after a successful tenure of building a business up from scratch to $130 million over a 5-year period, and ending up in the financial reporting space, I knew one thing, and I really wanted to work with early stage companies that were trying to, change the environment that not only that their businesses affected, but kind of this whole evolution that was happening, around startup cultures around the world. And working with these early stage companies, I realized very early on that, regardless of how well I thought I may have known their businesses and tried to help them with their corporate strategy and their business strategy, everybody was looking to raise capital. I decided to get my securities licensing. So I've been recycled right now through 4 investment banks over a 5-year period, and I think that's kind of par for the course, that I never really found myself comfortable inside a traditional investment banking environment. And again, it really had more to do with the way that information was, used, and ownership would have to be taken on those parties that actually would book a deal. So, I've been involved in, the venture investing space for some time. We set up an incubator in 2009 in New York, which again was a decentralized virtual incubator where we were working with companies all over the place and kind of helping take them to market and find early stage capital for them. But, now having spent 5 years under the compliance umbrella of FINRA and the SEC, I was approached, back in 2014 through some intelligence that I was building around tracking VC investments. And this blockchain thing started to come up left and right. And, I was fortunate enough to kind of see the first Series A deals that kind of went into the industry. And I was really, very, very compelled in why some of the most influential and investors in the world were kind of investing in this new, kind of exchange economy, because that's the way I looked at it. The early stage deals had a lot to do with exchange level technologies and building the infrastructure to be able to kind of manage transactions across the blockchain. And as time went on and we started to see the evolution of ICOs and the ability for companies to disrupt the traditional venture capital stack was really compelling to me. And I decided to do something about it, and created an environment where I started to bring in like-minded people like myself that were focused on the changes that were about to transpire. So we made some early stage investments in some companies. Got familiar a little bit more with the mechanics of what happens on the blockchain itself. And, sprinkled with a little bit of, cultural, awareness, we started to see this transformational change happen, which again, I think is apparent on everybody's mind right now is this thing for real, right? And I can, confidently attest that, yes, it is. Is it perfect? No. Does it provide opportunities for people? Yes. And, are these technologies going to change the world in some way? And, starting with the fabric of the banking institutions, the way that they're held together, we feel that we're building the investment bank of the future here that, uses data and intelligence essentially to guide our thought process. But it allows an entirely new economy to be created that, frankly, we don't see any correlation between, what's happening in the crypto world and the rest of the world. It's just, we're kind of living on our own plane right now. And, we got involved with a number of strong partners that kind of bought into our vision and are helping us drive commerce between the companies themselves and their challenges in taking commercial product to market through the compliance process of making sure that their governance and their compliance is in place. The holy grail here to this industry, I believe, is the commercialization of things, that these valuations need to be supported by fundamentals. And those companies that are successful at executing on their business strategies and deploying these new age technologies to traditional industries, I think is right around the corner.
Okay. So as you were developing this, what were some of the immediate challenges that you had to face here? Were there technology challenges? Were there compliance, regulatory issues? What are some of the things that didn't quite go as planned?
Well, the regulatory world is ever changing right now. We don't really have too much clear direction on things, even though we may think we know where things are going. And until there is a clear leadership position by the regulatory bodies and how the crypto market and how crypto assets should be treated, especially when it comes down to investor capital, is right around the corner, which means that there will be a playbook and that, compliance will evolve around, I would say the efficiency of blockchain. So understanding the regulatory roadmap is the first thing. It's really to kind of ask very, very tough questions at times regarding not only the liability of your project, but also the liability of your investors, because, these are community-driven projects and, success can be captured by many, and failure can be, captured by many as well. So I look at this more that situation is evolving, and that it's really up to the company itself to kind of create their own governance and stay within the lines of the compliance that has been advised to them through their attorneys. The technology part really seems to be almost, the fun part of all of this. It's how to be able to kind of build something and test something and then kind of apply it to something. And, because the standard, or at least from a development standpoint, the standards now are very clear. It takes time to kind of understand how to write a smart contract. And we have to start to think about, the behavior of that token or the behavior of that contract in relation to the way that, we are going to build the technology around it. So I don't really see that as much of the challenge. I just think that marketplace is evolving right now. But it's always about trying to pick best of class innovation and betting on those teams that you have the most confidence in being able to kind of execute on their business plan. So, personnel and talent right now is somewhat evasive because of, the fact that things are moving so fast, and a lot of people that are in the advisory business of blockchain are kind of moving around from deal to deal to deal, which is okay because it kind of helps accelerate that conversation. But in all reality that, these companies need a solid business plan, disciplined execution, and, a focus on, their token holders, just like they would in any other public structure. It's the responsibility to shareholders in providing, not only the governance, but the rewards of success.
Okay. And what do you see as the future of your particular industry with relation to technology?
Well, again, I think that, investment banking is going to, tremendously be affected by the way that companies are identified, the way M&A transactions are done, the way private equity is done. Anything to expedite the process there and validate the components of a transaction, are greatly enhanced by being able to provide, a blockchain around the transaction. But we just see these, very, very specific verticals, like in the patent space and like in the real estate space, that can help drive more efficiency and speed and expedite, transactions across those environments. So, it's part of the evolution right now. 2017 is going to go down as a critical year. It was kind of, I think the point of no return, right? Critical mass has gotten to where it is right now. And, as much as the hype machine is part of the noise in the industry right now, sustainability is going to be established by those companies that take leadership and really kind of provide alternative solutions, not only for investors, but kind of for industry themselves, and how to be able to drive better and more efficient technology across those, the verticals that they touch.
Okay, very good. So you can learn more about Etheralabs by visiting Etheralabs.io. And just so that we don't get that misspelled or confused with any other companies, can you spell that for us, Bryan?
Yeah, it's ETHERALABS.io. And you could reach me by email at Zephyr, ZEPHYR, @Etheralabs.io. I'd love to hear from you. And I just want to thank you for the time today and the opportunity to speak to your audience. And, thanks again.
Excellent. Bryan Feinberg from Etheralabs.io. Thanks very much for joining us. And thanks for listening to our podcast, everyone. We will see you next time here on Future Tech.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.